Good afternoon, class. My name is Franklin Chung, and today I will be talking about the new laws and policies regarding electronic vehicles. I'm going to elaborate on the new policies, and then I'm going to state my proposition. As many countries around the world have already stepped in and taken action in implementing their new laws and policies around this topic that I'll be talking about today, countries such as China, India, UK, and other states bordering around them have already set a concrete date where they're gonna either ban the usage of gasoline, diesel operated cars, or they're gonna remove them off the market. However, this alienates us, the United States of America, as we haven't even set up a concrete date, nor have we even discussed about the topic. Which leads me to my proposition, which is the neglect of this trend will ultimately leave the US behind if we fail to do the same as these other countries. There are three major supporting claims that I will be discussing that support my proposition. First one being the most obvious is electronic vehicles are more eco-friendly and better for the ecosystem. Second being that it will reduce the noise population for our country. And lastly, it is all in all safer than gasoline and diesel powered, making our country more safe if we do act upon this. Now back to my first piece of evidence. By now I'm certain that everyone's heard of electronic vehicles, and they've heard the statement or claim that at least once where, I'm driving an electronic vehicle, I'm saving the world. But how much of that statement is true? And how can we make that into a reality? Well, according to the United States Environmental Protection Association, a typical passenger vehicle emits approximately 4.6 metric tons of CO2 per year. Assuming the vehicle is at 22 miles per gallon and drives approximately 12,000 miles per year, which is actually the nation's average. As far as an electronic vehicle, it emits zero. 4.6 metric ton compared to zero is a drastic change. However, one out of 1,000 people isn't gonna do much. It will take a nation and majority of the world to actually have an impact. Another quote from EPA. Next up, on why electronic cars are better for the ecosystem is obviously the source. It's battery, not EFF or essential fossil fuel. Batteries, lithium or non-cobalt batteries are at its prime as of right now. The production is at its highest peak, and the prices are dropping very low, as these are more recyclable than EFF. EFF is like million-year-old fossils, and it goes through a process that emits more air pollutants to the air. It goes from oil rig to refinery, which causes a lot of air pollutants, while for making batteries, there's a lot less. And not only that, to obtain the electricity to power the batteries, it could either be nuclear, hydro, air, or solar, which contain no air pollutants, according to the US Department of Energy 2018. For my second claim, electric cars will reduce noise population. And for the people who don't know what noise pollution is vital in a nation because, or what it is, so I'm gonna explain it. So noise pollution is the average constant decibel in a certain area, and it affects almost every living thing in its area. And it's important because it's one out of the five sensors that we use, according to Rishikesh 2016, Head of Director of Conserve Future Energy. As the noise pollution, a constant noise pollution may cause hearing loss, sleeping disorders, cardiovascular in the long term, aggressional behavior, and other psychological people. Not only is it a problem for humans and wildlife, but it is also the key factors of the living standards for our country. Now the question is, how do electrical vehicles drastically have an impact on noise pollution? Well, the average car has a decibel of 80 to 90 decibels, while an electronic car is 40, which is almost half of it. Tesla Model S 2017. Lastly, electric cars reduce automobile accidents and fatalities. According to the DMV records, 26% of car crashes in the 2014 to 2018 involved a distracted person using their phone behind the wheel. Now, what if we could stop this from happening? Well, with today's technological advances, we just have that to reduce the problem, or maybe even have solved the problem. Claudia Asis from Market Watch. Tesla cars and other car brands have either self-driving or automated stopping power. In lane switching, for example, Tesla cars have self-driving, newer Toyotas have automated switch or stopping. And I believe it's safe to say that automatic electric vehicles may solve the problem of these factors, because as it lowers the risk of distracted drivers and in some cases even drunk driving or impaired driving. Arjun Karpal, reporter of CNBC News of 2018, the members of the advisory board states drunk driving on or drug driving in driverless cars should be exempt from DUI, as it is ultimately a drunk person similarly entering into a taxi. All in all, if the US continues to neglect the trend that countries are partaking in, it will ultimately set us behind, as electronic cars are more eco-friendly, quieter and comforting, and overall making the world a safer place.
All right, well, the proposition is identified. It's a little convoluted in the way it's expressed, but I think we generally get the idea. You're all in favor of EV, but our failure to act is going to leave the U.S. behind. I think there's a presupposition here that other countries are doing more to have electric vehicles than we are because they have target dates. I don't have any information anywhere in the speech that talks about what percentage of vehicles on the road are electric vehicles in any of those countries or in the United States. So we have no comparative data to be able to make this inference, except for countries that have laws that say, well, by 2040, some of these countries are going to ban these particular vehicles. But if the United States, for instance, through the market system, got rid of all those vehicles at 2030, they would be 10 years ahead of those laws. We don't have any way of knowing if that's possible because we don't have any data about penetration of the market by electric vehicles. So you need to have something in there that shows that the electric vehicle market is not expanding fast enough, it's not moving on its own, that it needs government aid in order for us to move in that particular direction. And you don't really have anything like that. I think that's problematic. The impact of electric vehicles on the environment is generally asserted. I mean, you do have some statistical and factual data that you're presenting on this. The idea that the electric power is going to be produced by some other means other than EFF, I think, is a big presupposition. There are problems with all of those alternative energies, some of which are going in the opposite direction of expansion. So the notion that we're going to have an even trade-off, I think, is a little naive. I think you need to have a little bit more development of that particular argument. It was confusing because that you labeled that as the second point in your argument, and then you got to the second point of your argument again, which was noise pollution. I was expecting noise pollution to be the second point of your argument. That's what you had in the preview of the speech, but you had this other second point in there, so that's a little bit confusing. I think you're overdoing the point. It may, in fact, just be all part of that first point, but it got convoluted with the labeling that was going on there. Your second and your third points, though, were more clearly labeled. The noise pollution issue you talk about. How significant that is a little generic. I mean, in essence, since we have the noise at the current level, it would go down without these kinds of things. Is there any estimate of what amount of problems this would solve? How much less of all these harms that would occur? That, I think, is a little mythical in nature, and I think it needs to be a little more concrete to make a stronger argument. Would we like a quieter world? I think most of us would, but we'd probably just fill it up with rap music anyway, so that would screw that up. You know? All right. And then on the third point, the third point is the biggest problem in the speech because you are conflating electric vehicles with autonomous vehicles. And autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles are different. A lot of the characteristics that you talked about in Tesla model cars and Toyota model cars, with all the sensors and those sorts of things, those exist in gas-based vehicles as well. So they're not unique to electric vehicles. So it's not so much an argument on why we need electric vehicles as it is an argument that says the technology of autonomous cars is going to fix things in the future. And then you make a reference to the drunk driving thing. It'd be just like we get in a taxi cab. Well, when that happens, that'll be great, you know, but that could be, the car could be driven by any kind of engine that's going on there. There's nothing that says that it has to be an electric vehicle for the car to be autonomous. So I think that's a little bit of, that's the biggest problem like I see in the argument there. That and the fact that you're 2 minutes over time, which is a little problematic. All right.